With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
May be a brand new year, but we're not changing your Monday night dose of PRL action from the LMP3 GT4 Challenge, the series that saw some of the most intense and competitive action towards the back end of 2024 with some incredible championship battles. Let's hope that with the new year we get some more incredible content for you guys here in the PRL. Delighted to have your company on RaceSpotTV for the first time on a Monday night in 2025. My name is Dareth Thacker. Joining me in the commentary box is Ron Mawns for what I believe is your first PRL race, Ron. Delighted that you're here alongside me. Watkins Glen, an LMP3 GT4 Challenge race. This could be a real exciting one to kick off the year.
This is going to be a brilliant way to kick off the year of 2025 off here from the PRL series. You got LMP3s and you got GT4s, some classic sports car action around a classic sports car track. Watkins Glen, whenever you think of here, you think of NASCAR, you think of IMSA, you think of Formula One, who raced here back in the day, but Watkins Glen, a wonderful racetrack in the world of motorsports, and I think there's no better way to kick off this season, chock full of some fantastic racetracks.
Yeah, we really do go to some of the big hits. There's Daytona early on as well. Magellan's going to be an interesting race towards the start of the season, but I think I'm looking towards the likes of Phillip Island, Long Beach, and Mosport to provide some really good action towards that middle part of the season.
I'm looking through at this schedule, some fantastic racetracks we have coming up. I'll join you in looking forward to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. That track, it's a unique one in the world of motorsports, and Mario Andretti straight away on there. It's just about the only long flat-out blast of any sort of note around there. One track, though, that I'm really looking forward to is going to be Long Beach the week before then. Maybe a little bit of a hectic race for some of these drivers, but for us in the commentary booth, we won't have to worry about any sort of crash damage that these drivers may have to worry about. We're just going to be focused on the fun racing action to come from all the races we have this season.
And Road America will provide our first championship finale of the season, so that'll be an exciting one in a few weeks' time. But before we get started and get into the action here in qualifying, we've got to thank our sponsors who make these broadcasts possible, starting with Logitech. Logitech wheels and pedals are equipped with true force feedback to help you feel the road and own the race. Use code PRECISION5 at checkout on logitechg.com for 5% off of your purchase. Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every single game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself into the driver's seat with Butt Kicker. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. It is, of course, a great addition to any sim room. and Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on all of their socials to become a better driver. And I do believe you can follow them on pretty much any social media you can think of. We thank all of those sponsors for joining us at the start of 2025. One thing I was going to quickly note, Ron, before we get into the qualifying action about Mosport that you were picking up on in the calendar, is that not too long ago, back end of last season, last year even, I think it was season 3 of 2024, we had an incredible race at Mosport. I think it was raining in the LMP3 GT4 Challenge, so we've got pedigree there before, so I agree with you, really looking forward to that race. But here and now at Watkins Glen to start the season, qualifying underway, no times on the board yet, and a few drivers who have a little bit of pedigree, and I think a few new names who are trying to stake their claim for a title.
Yeah, these drivers looking to try and kick this season off and start it on the right foot, and to do so you got to have a good qualifying session around a racetrack like this. Old school in its design, old school in the way you have to attack it as well. Track position certainly going to be very important come time for the start of this race. So this qualifying session going to have a bit more importance in these drivers' minds. 10 minutes for these drivers, 4 laps to try and get the job done. Let's see who can try and grab the pole in both the GT4 class and the LMP3s. The LMP3s, I don't know about you, Dara, but I have a lot of experience covering some LMP3 racing on the iRacing platform, and these cars, despite the fact they're a little bit peculiar in the way they look and the way they drive as well, they put on some pretty darn good racing, though.
They absolutely do. There's no doubt about that. And we've got some of the real top drivers in LMP3s on iRacing here tonight. Here's JP Alfonso in the 996 car. We'll see what he can do. Great to get some driver cams. We always love a good driver cam here in the PRL, particularly on a Monday night as well. But even from some of the names that we can see in the LMP3s, I'm looking at Mobin Khan, Adam Brockway, just to name a couple, Jerome Bertiome, who's back in the LMP3s from last season. Zach Hebert had a great season last season, and we're highlighting him here. Really consistent all the way through, and he's still got his VR headset. Didn't necessarily get another one for Christmas, unless he does. I can't remember now actually, but Zach Hebert with his VR setup, we'll see what he can do. In the GT4s as well, we've got the likes of Matthew Wyckoff. I did see Aaron Myers in there as well, and Aiden Young, the top 3 from the championship last year, back this year, and it's always great to see that, isn't it, Ron?
Yeah, always great to see some consistent characters, but seeing some newcomers in this series as well. Always love the consistent cast of drivers making their appearance year after year, season after season, race after race. But as we're about to get some lap times on the board, I think I'll briefly run through what we saw in practice earlier on in some of the categories. In the LMP3 class, it was Edwin Onfrey in the 96 car who set the fastest time in the practice session in the LMP3s. And moving on to the GT4s, it was Garrett Maines in the 12 setting the fastest GT4 time in the practice. But let's see how things are going to convert as we get the first lap times on the board.
Yeah, and let's see if we can break some records. Fastest lap at the Watkins Glen International Boot in an LMP3 in the PRL, 37.835. I feel like either we're on a slightly different layout or we're absolutely smashing it tonight. 36.7 is what Miguel Vigo, I should say, has set. And we're already in the GT4s, getting the battle between Aaron Myers and Aiden Young. All the way through last season, they toed and froed in the championship battle. Polls went this way and that. Aaron Myers had the edge in qualifying. He looks like he's just about got that now. Justin Rain, though, he's back in the GT4s after a little time away. He's got record after record in the PRL in this machinery. Let's see what he can do in this championship. Garrett Maines, though, goes to the top of the tree. This already looks, with some of the names that we've got and some of the times that we're setting, like it's going to be an absolutely stellar season.
Oh, it already is, with a fantastic slate of racetracks to look forward to and a fantastic amount of competition on the racetracks themselves. This is setting up to be a really good season, and hey, we've got a lot of action and excitement to talk about, and we're only 5 minutes into the first qualifying session from this season. I was going to mention the fact that Aaron Myers and Justin Rem were covered by, what was it, 5,000ths of a second? That was pure insanity for what was a provisional pole in GT4, but these drivers still setting some lap times on the board. Adam Brockway jumping up to P2.
Yeah, good lap time from Brockway just to get himself onto the front row. Looking pretty tight, though, and a lot of times yet to come in from a whole host of drivers in a very large grid to kick off the season, and exactly what we love to see. We have got, what was that, 30 GT4s at least, if that 33 GT4s make that. So many names and so many drivers getting us started in 2025. Aaron Myers, though, came up just short in the championship back end of last season. What can he do to start 2025? It's P2 for the time being, and Matthew Wyckoff, his teammate last season, joining him. And second and third. Nearly a bit of a spin from Aaron Myers, though, as he runs through the opening turn. Still times to be set. Mobin Khan, one of those drivers, and he flicks himself over that chicane.
That chicane is going to be a real trouble spot for these racers, and not just this qualifying session, but the race we have coming up. That chicane, especially in the LMP3s, you'll notice it there for sure. Got to hit those curbs, got to eat the curbs like they're cereal for breakfast, and just send it through that section as fast as you possibly can. Actually, correction, as fast as you possibly dare go through that section. The amount of times I've covered a race at Watkins Glen here, Dara, and had a big calamity heading through the bus stop chicane really speaks volumes about how difficult and old school this racetrack is, and how difficult that chicane really is as well.
One thing that isn't particularly difficult for the drivers to do is to keep it inside the track limits coming off of the heel. Of course, they don't have to worry about track limits too much. You can see by how far wide they can go. iRacing lets you get away with it just that little bit more than at other corners. So that's why we're seeing drivers take the NASCAR line through there. I think we do see that a lot when NASCAR arrive here at Watkins Glen, and we're seeing it in the LMP3 GT4 Challenge. Mobin Khan coming across the line. He's gone fastest, I do believe. Yeah, there he goes. Says the purple lap time, 36.448 is now the benchmark, and Mobin Khan, who got the pole in the first race last season, is looking like he's going to try and repeat the feat and be on pole for the first race this season. Wasn't able to win that race at the start of last season. Let's see if he can do one better tonight. Arnaud Jeunesse is coming around the final corner, currently P6 in the GT4s, looking for another little improvement, but it's so congested in that GT4 class, a tenth or two could shoot you up the order.
Yeah, it is still vacuum sealed together in that GT4 category. Think of it this way. The fact that the front row sitters, as it stands at the moment, are separated by 0.023 of a second between Garrett Maines and Aiden Young. That is ridiculously close around a racetrack like this. 3.45 miles long, according to how iRacing judges it. You may want to add in a little bit, give or take, to that number, but still, to have that small of a gap after a whole lap around this racetrack, which in a GT4 car is near about 2 minutes long, that really speaks volumes about how close this field is and how tip-top these drivers are.
Yeah, going to be really exciting to see how this race will develop. Only a minute and a half left in qualifying. Adam Brockway just about getting himself onto the front row of the grid on what I believe will be his final lap of the session. Aiden Young back in his favourite Mercedes, in a very now black and white coloured Mercedes. There was a little bit more yellow on the car back end of last year, but he's gone more for the zebra look, and we'll see what he can do. Hopefully he's not a zebra crossing for some of the other drivers. I hope that's a reference that is understood in America. I will double check that. But Aiden Young through this middle sector, the meat of the lap. What can he do? Can he get himself that extra quarter of a tenth of a second to get himself pole in the closing minute here?
Yeah, not a whole lot of time left to go for him to set that time. And bearing in mind, folks, it is a solo qualifying session. So when that 10 minutes is up, that is done. These drivers get yoinked back to pit lane, and that will do it from the qualifying session. So Aiden Young trying to get that lap time under the wire in the 427 car, rounding his way around the third to last corner of turn number 9. While the hardest corners from my perspective around this racetrack, only one more corner after this one. That's turn number 10. Now into turn number 11, trying to go through the gear and hit that apex as best as you can, but carry that momentum onto that start-finish straightaway. Don't scrape that outside barrier either, and he comes across the line. Let's see, is it an improvement? It is not going to be from Aiden Young. He remains in P2, not going to challenge Maines.
No, I'm going to stay where he is. And I think actually Maines improved on his lap time at the end of the session there to put himself in the 1 minute 51. It's a great way to end the session and a great way to start the season for Garrett Maines. We'll see what he can do at the start of the race. So great to see. I did have a quick look there, Ron. When I said zebra crossing, apparently it meant Mark's Crossway. Does that mean anything to you, a Mark's Crossway?
No, you usually just call it a crosswalk. I know what you're getting at, though. So
okay, that's fine.
Despite being the American on these broadcasts, I do occasionally get a little bit of UK terminology, and I think that may be something that pops up a lot during these broadcasts all throughout the season. But I did catch a drift there.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm just trying to. I don't want to keep my references from the viewers that that are clearly ununderstood, but it's good to know that we are on the same page. This is the poll then from Mobin Khan. Like I said, we started the season, just about 3-4 months ago with Mobin Khan's pole lap on a Monday night. We're seeing it again, and this is how we did it. He'll lead the field to green after what was quite a stellar qualifying lap here at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, this was a brilliant lap time from him. Going on to this back straightaway, we're going to hit that trouble spot, the inner loop, the bus stop chicane. Always feels odd calling it the inner loop, but you can see full commitment down in gear, just absolutely sending it through there in 5th. That is beauty in motion. That is poetry behind the wheel of a multiple 100 horsepower race car from Mobin Khan. That, I don't know about you, Dara, but that looked absolutely epic.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic from Mobin Khan. He works his way down towards the toe. Of course, one of the more difficult corners on the racetrack. It's off camber. It's unsighted. You've really got to pick the exit where there's not really any runoff. No curb to really mark it. Just a little bit of extra tarmac before you reach the grass. How wide does Mobin Khan go as he works his way through turn 8 at the heel? How much extra track does he use? Well, as much as he can. Nearly onto the grass, but not quite before the penultimate couple of corners. This tight left-hander, of course, where the shorter loop rejoins the circuit, and then you've only got the final 2 corners to worry about. Turn 10 and turn 11, relatively medium to high speed corners. You have to carry all the momentum and try and find every single 100th, as much commitment as you can make, close to the wall if you can, and then run it out to the line. That's Mobin Khan's pole lap time then in the LMP3s, and then we're going to jump across to see how it was done in the GT4s. Here's Garrett Maines, number 12. He's on pole, and this is going to feel a little bit more sedate, I feel.
It's going to feel a little bit slower compared to the LMP3, but that doesn't discredit this time from Maines in a GT4 car. Got to wheel it around. You can see him sawing at the wheel a teeny tiny bit as he hits that exit curb coming at turn number 1. Now through the S's, we're going to see the other side of the spectrum. We saw the onboard with the LMP3 pole lap and the insanity of going through there in 5th gear. This is going to be an entirely different perspective, though, in the GT4. You can see in 6th heading into the corner, going down into 5th, now into 4th. Hitting those curbs, though, you can see nearly getting all 5. I think he got all 4 up into the air, leaving the deck to Garrett Maines heading through that section. Full commitment, hitting those curbs. And one thing that we have to mention in terms of the commitment to go through that, you have to have so much confidence in your race car to be able to go through that section as quick as these drivers have done, which would certainly explain why they both grabbed the poles in their respective classes.
And in these GT3s, I think the drivers are going to have to be worried a little bit more, or GT4s, I should say. The drivers are going to have to be worried a little bit about the traffic. How do you feel like that's going to reflect in the race? Because it's a wide circuit, but it's high speed, and the lines do converge, don't they?
Yeah, they do a little bit. I think lap traffic in this 1-hour race we have coming up is going to be a sight to behold. For us in the commentary booth, it is going to be a sight to be terrified about for some of these drivers, whether you're in an LMP3 or whether you're in a GT4 and you just feel like the LMP3s are coming at you going about like Mach 10 or something like that. It's a terrifying perspective for both sides of the coin. It is really scary, so that's certainly got to be one thing that we have to keep in mind come time for this 1-hour race. That pace discrepancy between the 2 categories that we have. I mean, looking through at the pole times that we had in either category, Maines at a 151.927 that we saw on that onboard shot there, and Mobin Khan in the LMP3s saying a 136.4. So that's a pretty big pace differential, and that is going to throw a real wrench in the works for this 1-hour race.
Yeah, we've seen how traffic can be so important in the PRL in these races, and I think with the amount of GT4s we have tonight, it's going to be quite a sight to behold on the first pass at least. We can hope that it stays nice and clean. With this many cars, we're just going to have the hope. Moving Khan will lead us to green, though, in a couple of minutes' time. It's Adam Brockway just alongside him on the front row with Miguel Vigo in P3. It's Eric Leroy, the teammate to Adam Brockway, lining up just behind him in P4, with Victor Couto and Zach Hebert lining up on row number 3. JP Alfonso and Carter James make up row number 4, with Edwin Onofra and Faizan Sheikh on row 5. Edwin Onofra, of course, returning from last season. Jerome Bertiome and Scott Angelo are on row number 6. They're just about a second off of the pole time, with David Stevenson and Kwok Nin on row number 7. Chad Nobles and Herbert Pineda on row 8, with Dakiel Rodriguez and Jacob Van Spanje in row number 9. A little bit further back off of the pole time, but still in the field, and they are the top 18. And that's all of the LMP3s that we will have this evening. They're going to have to be working their way through these GT4s over the race. It's Garrett Mains on pole position. First time it's not been Aidan Young or Aaron Mize in a long time, but you know, they're second and third. They're still going to be in the fight. Matthew Wykov in 4th, making it a perfect 1-2-3 from last season in 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Michael Brooks and Christian Menez is in P6. We've got Arno Janest and Justin Rain making up row number 4, with Ken Copeland and Chris Smreka on row 5. Jeremy Rogers and Skylar Davis are on row 6, and you can see how congested the fields are, with Joseph Daly in P13, less than 3/4 of a second off of that pole time. Justin Bragg and Ayrton Williams and Gabriel Gutierrez are on rows 7 and 8, with Kurt Ham and Kate Smith rounding out our top 18. We've got Eric Venson and Caitlin Tobin on row 10, with Mike Gallant and Roy Brown in 21st and 22nd. In 23rd, it's Jeremy Manella, and he's just ahead of Keith Powell on row number 12, with Joseph Malley, Robert Schwenkler, Travis Pruitt, Parker Muirhead, Joe Faraoni and Stephen Tang in the top 30. The grid is reared up by Jordan Walker, Jeff Rosenberger and Roman Foe, the 33 GT4s, making a 51 car grid. And Ron, we're going to have a little bit of chaos here. I don't think there's any getting away from that. By the time we see the LMP3s get to the back of the GT4s, I think it's going to be panic stations for quite a few of the drivers.
Yeah, it is going to be a really sketchy beginning of this race. You gotta think of like the first 3 laps as being possibly the most tense, but then the traffic is gonna arrive a couple of laps in, and then things are really going to get rough for some of these racers. So I gotta imagine how these drivers are going to approach and how they're going to tackle the first couple of corners and the first couple of laps in this race. If you're in the mid-pack, you're definitely going to be walking around on eggshells. There's no doubt about it. You're going to be terrified. Heading through turn 1, heading through the S's as well. That's one thing in the GT4s that I have seen bite some drivers on the butt in the past. Heading through that section in a massive GT4 pack can sometimes end in a major amount of drama. So we may have to look a little bit further than back to find the GT4 chaos. But the LMP3s, they're not going to have an easy time of it either. So really tense start to the season and really tense start to this race.
Yeah, first time we'll have seen either of these two machines, the LMP3 or the GT4, in the PRL at Watkins Glen, not in the month of June. We've had 4 events in the GT4s here in PRL, every single one happening in June. So nice to have a little bit of discrepancy there. Only one person in the field has won in their machinery at this track before, and that was Justin Rame in the GT4s. Let's see if he can make it a second win at Watkins Glen. We've had none of the LMP3s winning an LMP3 here at Watkins Glen, even though we have many a race winner at some circuit in the midst of the field. This is going to be a great way to kick off this season. 51 cars. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to throw you under the bus, Ron. It's your first PRL race. Who's going to win the race?
Oh, you are doing me dirty here, Dara. Man, that is a really tough question that you have for me. Looking through the field, I would say in the LMP3s, it's going to be hard to bet against a driver like Mobin Khan. He wasn't too quick in practice, though, so that may hold against him. In the GT4s, on the other hand, Garrett Mains, fastest in practice, fastest in qualifying. He may be the driver that I take a look at for there, but in the LMP3s, I think it's going to be a bit less cut and dry. The qualifying session, the practice session, completely different circumstances. The race going to be different as well. Only time will tell. All I know is that this hour of racing action we have coming up is going to be fantastic.
And around the final corner they come. It's 60 minutes on the clock, the first time in 2025 that we're going to see these drivers go racing. And at Watkins, Glen, we are green for the LMP3 GT4 Challenge. And it's a fantastic start from Obin Khan to control the field down in towards turn 1. He'll take the inside line, take the racing line as they fight it behind for second and third. In the GT4s, though, it's side by side for the lead. Not all the own way for our pole sitter. It's Aiden Young, the reigning champion, trying to come around the outside in his Mercedes. Going to have to use a little bit of the circuit and more. There's cars spin off in the background. They're 3 wide as they make their way through the S's, but what a start that is from Aaron Myers up into the lead.
Yeah, that's a brilliant start from him, but there was a big incident a little bit farther in the back. I think someone may have gotten hit with a chrome horn at the very start, as you can see some rally action heading through the bus stop. That is absolutely terrifying for the number 72 of Victor Coito, who I believe was a driver we just saw take the rally line through the bus stop chicane. Now trying to regain some spots, dropping down into 7th, getting a move put on him by Carter James very briefly, though, as side-by-side about to head their way into the toe. Lots of drama going on at the very start of this race. Not sure what happened, though, in the GT4s. All I know, a driver went off the track majorly quick and majorly sideways. Their tires have probably been turned into rectangles. I think there's more drama in the GT4s, this time heading down into the chute.
Yeah, I think Matthew Wyckoff was one of the drivers who was caught up in all that. Started P4, now right down the order. I think he was the driver going backwards. Very difficult angle for us to see initially. I'm sure we'll see a replay of that in the coming minutes. But as we focus in on this LMP3 battle at the front of the field, it's clear to see how tight it's going to be. Mobin Khan having a couple of connection difficulties, which is why he's jumping up and down the order. I also noticed how Garrett Mays and Nathan Young were fighting briefly for P2 and P3. But a word on Aaron Myers. Started P3, watched the 2 in front of him go into turn 1 and was able to almost do the up and under move to get into the lead. Having said that, Garrett Mays has come back on him and is back into the lead of the race. So he's gone from first to third, back up to first again. And the number 12, who was on pole, is going to lead the first lap. That doesn't really tell the full story, does it?
It does not, but the GT4 game of leapfrog clearly beginning a side-by-side a little bit farther behind, involving Aiden Young and Michael Brooks into turn number 1. A battle last late breakers. Who is going to prevail? It looks like it's going to be Aiden Young in that 427 car, maybe losing out. Still on the inside line through turn number 2, up into the S's. This is terrifying. And look at Christian Menendez right behind. He may try and get involved in this in that Aston Martin. Got 3 cars covered by practically nothing. He could make that 4 now, as Justin Remgang involved in this fight as well, the 88.
Yeah, and Rem all on the inside, nearly being squeezed into the wall, but keeping it out of that, keeping a nice line actually to make sure he doesn't lose too much time to the drivers then behind him. Good start for Justin Rem up into P6 after starting down, I believe, in P8. So decent start for the number 88 driver. He's looking to go even further forward, but this battle will continue on. This is Matthew Wyckoff. Yes, it was Wyckoff spinning off at turn number 1, all on his own. Any contact, and then found himself having to somehow reverse out of that one. This is David Stevenson as he's got into the wall coming out of the bus stop and just being avoided there by a couple of the drivers at the back of the LMP3s and going into the wall there. Keith Powell, another one of the victims, as it was a slightly messy start, but generally we've had almost everybody make their way through cleanly in the opening stages.
Yeah, I have a couple of incidents here and there. Everyone getting through clean. This incident with Keith Powell, who are taking a look at another angle of this time riding on board with the driver of the 322 car. That was the only major collision that we had in the early stages, as there may have been another incident. Big contact. Actually, I will amend that statement I just made. 3 McLarens coming to blows heading through the bus stop. Robert Schwankler in the 235 car getting a major bit of contact as a result of all that, loses out on the most amount of time. I think that may have sent off some drama heading through the few corners that immediately followed. Yeah, there's a lot of drama going on in the GT4s, focused on the front. Didn't see a lot of this stuff going on in the midfield, but it certainly happened.
Yeah, right at the back of the GT3s. Mike Gallant, one of those in the number 3, who has gone around, almost like he's trying to take the wrong layout of the circuit there. He'll get back on course, and Schrenkler again. I think we saw him spinning down at the bus stop, and the rear tyres clearly not happy with him after that, and spinning again down at the following corner. Dakiel Rodriguez as well, another driver who had some issues, but we're going to jump back up to this battle at the front of the field in the GT4s. We've got Garrett Maines, Aaron Myers and Aiden Young, although Mobin Khan, again, that's just his connection. Don't panic, guys. He may do it a few times, but Mobin Khan is still in the lead. If he drops down significantly and we miss it, we'll blame his connection for almost juking us out. But here we go. A couple of the LMP3s working their way through, but this is because LMP3's at the back of the train. We're not seeing the full train led by Mobin Khan get to the back of the GT4s just yet, but I'm going to be honest, I really don't think it's going to be anything more than 5 minutes before we see that happen.
Yeah, I think that's a very good theory from you there, Dara. We're following Garrett Maines. He's about to head his way off into the heel of turn number 8 right about now, as that's a spinner heading through turn number 1 in the LMP3s. And staying on the LMP3 action and looking at Victor Coito in that 72, having that sideways snap through turn number 1. Thankfully, doesn't get T-boned by any of his competitors, but now looking at the action that we've got at the north end of this field, it's a fight between Brockway and Vigo in the number 62 car. I was just going to say, in terms of the fact that the leader at the moment in GT4 going on to that start finish straight away down. Mobin Khan, though, he's heading through the boot section right now, so not going to be a whole lot of time before we have that interclass mingling going on. I think that theory that he had of it being about 5 minutes is just about spot on there, Dara.
Hope so. I'll get my first little tick of the season if that's the case, but we'll have to wait and see. Won't be long regardless. We are seeing, however, on the bottom of your screen, Aiden Young getting close to Aaron Myers. How many times have we seen this on a Monday night in the GT4s and the PRL? These two have been two titanic battlers all the way through the back end of 2024 and even before that as well. Let's see how this one is going to shape out to kick off the season. Aiden Young just behind Aaron Myers after Aaron Myers got that jump off of the start, but Aiden Young with the 2 championships in the last 2 seasons. He's looking for 3 in a row, currently being held up by not just Aaron Myers, but Garrett Maines as well, in what is looking like it's going to be a fantastic championship all the way through. Michael Brooks was good towards the back end of last season too. Justin Ray, as I said, set record after record. He's the driver here tonight with the most miles driven at this circuit. He'll have clocked over 800 miles by the end of this race just at this circuit in the PRL, which is incredible realistically, and we have to say thanks to PRL who give us these stats. They are fantastic, but particularly Patrick Cowgill, who does such great work on that. Got to give him a shout out. But it is great to see so many of the top GT4 runners in the history of the PRL in this championship, and that they're all in a lead train, which you could really throw a blanket over.
Yeah, and that train is still running strong. You look at Maines leading it, you have to go back 1/4 of a second to Myers, and then go back about 1/10 and a half back to Aiden Young, then about 4/10 to Michael Brooks, and then about, I'm trying to do the math in my head, 7/10 back to Justin Rem. The whole front of the GT4 field is still incredibly close. You can see it in the bottom right-hand corner as we're seeing these drivers head down that start-finish straightaway off into turn number 1. It is a massive train of GT4 race cars that we've got dealing with a bit of GT4 traffic, though. Not sure who that is going slowly, and I believe that was a Porsche on the inside of turn number 1, but nevertheless, these drivers at the front of GT4 still covered by practically nothing. But at this point, Dara, I'm curious, now that we're approaching the end of the opening stages, shall we say, over 8 minutes on the clock, still have 51 minutes plus left to go. I'm curious if these drivers are maybe considering starting to take it a little bit easy.
They may be, but this isn't very easy for the LMP3.
Perfect time for me to mention that.
Yeah, exactly. This is really not what you want to be seeing. Eric Leroy's trying to find a gap. He's right on the back of Adam Brockway and Miguel Vigo. We've seen them swap positions, and this is why grass being kicked up so much debris on the circuit, but they'll make their way into the bus stop chicane right on the tail of a couple of GT4s. If you are the LMP3s working your way through now, you're going to feel like you get to the end of the GT4s, and then more are going to appear. 33 on the circuit, 29 in the lead train. It's just an incredible amount of cars to have to work your way through. It looks like Miguel Vigo has got himself a little bit of clean air, but it's going to start again pretty quickly, and Adam Brockway is going to be there to pick up the pieces if Miguel Vigo leaves any.
At this point in time, I can describe what these drivers in the LMP3 category are feeling as like being an exterminator trying to get rid of a wasp nest by someone's front door. You may get bit a couple of times, but you certainly don't want to get bit too much. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a world of trouble. These drivers looking to try and deal with the lap traffic as effectively as they can, but they don't want to swing for the fences yet here, Derek, considering we haven't even hit the 50 minute left to go mark of this race, haven't hit 10 minutes in. So these drivers, as much as it may be tempting to try and go for those moves and try to lose out as little time as possible, it's the difference between maybe giving up a half a second through the first run of traffic versus having an incident that'll cause a 2.5 minute long tow.
Yeah, it's going to be, quite the trade-off for some of these drivers, but, when the competition is so high, the margins are going to be narrow, and I think drivers are going to feel like they have to go for gaps that they otherwise maybe wouldn't go for. This is the battle, though, down in towards the bus stop once again. Are they going to be able to negotiate these GT4s before they get to the bus stop? Just about, I do believe, and Adam Brockway will be able to sweep through and make sure that he has claimed an extra little bit of time over his rivals behind the likes of Eric Leroy, Edmund Onofre, Carter James, who were stuck a little bit further back, and here they are around the outside. Is that side by side on the GT4s? I think it is. Coming around the carousel, they're not going to quite make any moves happen there, but really incredible moments. Oh, that's Mobin Khan! Mobin Khan off the road. He's had contact. He's not dropping down the order for connection. There's a big old crash down there, and Mobin Khan is part of it. He's down to P5.
That is a big amount of drama for the driver. The number 64 car started this race from the pole and was running so comfortably up at the front. He had a second-plus lead over Adam Brockway, but things have fallen apart in the past few moments. Not sure what in the world happened there. Heading in, I believe that was turn number 6 that they were heading into, right at the bottom of the chute, heading into the boot section. But either way, big contact being made. Look at that. Nearly going upside down as a GT4 McLaren. Mobin Khan with nowhere to go to avoid that Shamazo and a half. Multiple cars coming to blows, and I think it was a little bit of contact, maybe trying to go 3 wide with some GT4 cars that spurred that, but the drama is still continuing as Eric Leroy having a moment in the 444.
Yeah, Vigo was caught up in all of that as well. He's dropped down the order to let Adam Brockway have a little bit of a clear run at the lead. This is what happened to Leroy. Big contact into the penultimate corner with one of the GT4s. Not too sure who that was for the time being, but he's now dropped down behind the likes of Faizan Sheikh, who's just been able to work his way through the order up into P5 in that number 1 car. Here is the front of the GT4 class and the front of the LMP3s. Are they all going to make it through safely? Yeah, you bet, just about, with Adam Brockway clearing everybody in the GT4s for the first time. It's Maines, Myers and Young in that order still, as they have been for a little while now, following each other in a row. Got to be careful because Edmund Onofre's coming through. He's going this way in that, and just about makes it through without any contact.
Yeah, that could have ended in an absolute disaster. These drivers, as much as I said a couple of moments ago that they're maybe thinking on taking it easy, they certainly are not. Look at that full commitment heading down into turn number 7. That was some very gutsy stuff from Carter James. Some gutsy stuff from these drivers altogether. And just to tie the bow around the storyline involving Mobin Khan and that incident, I think the theory that I raised when we took a look at that replay of a little bit of contact being made between Khan and Fenson, that really kicked off that incident that's taken Khan out of contention for now. We've still got over 46 minutes left to go here. Still finds himself in 4th, about 7.5 seconds back of your leader of Adam Brockway. But I'm curious, is there any sort of damage on that number 64 LMP3 car that could hurt Mobin even more?
He's staying relatively okay in terms of the pace for the time being, but we will have to keep a keen eye on that. I think Mobin will be thinking to himself, why go for the move on the outside there of 3 wide in the GT4? And that's what happened to Miguel Vigo. Absolutely nowhere to go for the 62 driver. He was stuck between a rock and a hard place, and chose the rock seemingly. He didn't really have a choice. But for him dropping down the order, for Mobin Khan dropping down the order, Carter James now up into a podium position, having a great race. And this race really is going to be about being able to pick your moments, picking your line through and making sure that you can survive some of the traffic, because that is going to be the key decider in this race. You could find yourself losing, as we mentioned before, 2.5, 3 minutes towing, and then the time to repair the damages as well. just by making a small little error in the traffic, if you could be a little bit more patient and work your way through a little bit calmer and with ease, you may find yourself gaining far more positions in somewhat of a tortoise and the hare kind of scenario.
Yeah, that right there is a fantastic point that you raised, Dara, because usually you think, okay, 1 hour long race, there's some strategy that goes into it, but the strategy when it comes to a race like this, multi-class sports car racing, dealing with traffic and dealing with your competitors, and also considering that we're at the start of a brand new season, these drivers are looking to start it off in victory lane, spraying some champagne. These racers have to think of so much more than just the stuff that you'd usually think about in your average iRacing event. They have to think of the traffic. They have to think of how to attack their competitors. It's like a game of chess, but these drivers are running at 150 miles an hour as they're trying to think about 17 bajillion different things at once.
Yeah, it really is impressive that these drivers are able to perform under these intense scenarios. Just having a quick look in the YouTube chat, really nice to see so many of you getting involved. We always have a great chat on a Monday night, not least Alec Bergstrom, of course, winner in an LMP3 in the PRL here at Watkins, Glen, saying it was unlucky for Miguel, exactly. And I think it's hard to argue with that. But great to see all of you guys in the chat. It's a pleasure having you here on RaceSpotTV on a Monday evening for the PRL. It's a pleasure to see so many cars on the racetrack here at Watkins, Glen, and to have such a close battle for the lead. 2/10 it is between Garrett Mains and Aiden Young, the 427 looking for his first win of the season. As I said before, back-to-back champion coming into this season, and he's looking to make it 3 on the spin, but the competition's going to be stiff, and he's got to find a way past the number 12 soon.
Yeah, he's going to try and make hay while the sun is shining and get a move done in the not too far off future. And you can see that pack is still very close. A little bit of a breakup, though, between Aaron Myers and Michael Brooks. About 7/10 of a second between those two, which is about the same gap between Myers in third and Garrett Mains leading this race. So I want to ask you about this, Dara, and ask you about Garrett Mains leading this race. I kind of outlined him as one of my favorites heading into it, considering that he grabbed the pole and set the fastest time in practice, still leading this race as it stands at the moment. However, he hasn't really been able to shake off Aiden Young, so I want to ask you about your thoughts on Garrett Mains and how he's attacked this race thus far.
Well, it has been a good start, hasn't it, from Garrett? Of course, he's been able to control the lead for the time being, and it's really impressive with the field that we have got. I don't believe he's won a race in the PRL in these GT4s at least, so doing a really impressive job to hold off Aiden Young and Aaron Myers, whose name litters the records page when it comes to GT4 machinery. But Aiden Young and Aaron Myers, they are dangerous customers. They really are not to be messed with. They've battled each other for so long. They really know each other inside and out. But with Garrett Mains joining the grid this season, maybe adding a little bit more of an unknown to that championship battle, which will be fantastic to see throughout the season. And it'll be interesting to see how the likes of Young and Myers are able to cope with that unknown going into the opening few races, and how they will adapt their racing, if at all, going through the rest of the season. But they're still so close, aren't they, at this stage of the race? And I think we're going to get to a point where drivers are going to be starting to think about when and how they're going to be taking their pit stops.
15-year-old me would see this comment to be absolutely sacrilegious, but now that I'm far enough removed from math class back in the day, I can say I absolutely love variables, and these drivers certainly have to deal with a whole lot of them in this race. Those pit stops, a big factor. I also just want to point out, as we were following that camera shot, and I mentioned that comment a couple of moments ago, seeing Garrett Mains in that 12 car completely leave the deck and put all 4 wheels up into the air, hitting the curbs through the bus stop chicane. I don't know about you, Dara, but that sight will never grow old for me. That is absolute bravery on the iRacing platform if ever I've seen it.
Yeah, great camera angles as always. We've got Hugo Luis up in the broadcast booth making such a wonderful broadcast for us. And for those of you who've been around the PRL for a while will know Hugo always throws in a fantastic little slow-mo sometimes. So not to say that he will, but I'm just saying if we get a good moment, we might see a slow-mo. Not to put any pressure on Hugo either, but there we go. We can wait through the season. but those moments where you're lifting your car off the ground, it's so tense, really. You have no control over the car, obviously, and with the fine margins, particularly down at the bus stop, the littlest little wiggle on the exit of the corner when you re-land back onto planet Earth could send the car spinning into the wall. Nothing that comes of it will be good. So really impressive to see the car control on display from quite a lot of these guys. Approaching 1/3 distance, and we're still no closer to knowing who's going to be winning these races. A combined lead in both the LMP3s and the GT4s of 0.6 of a second, make that about 7 combined between both of the classes. Incredible to see how tight it has been, and a pleasure to see these guys still battling it out tooth and nail in the early stages of this race. I think we're in this stage as well where we're kind of seeing the drivers feel each other out. They're not necessarily going to go too aggressive at this stage. They know there's still a long way to go, and they don't want to throw away what they've already got.
That's exactly right. Despite the fact that 20 minutes in the grand scheme of a 1-hour race may not seem like a lot, 20 minutes of work just being completely erased because of one single mistake could end in disaster. 4 wide, though, heading down the start-finish straightaway. Holy cow there, Dara. That could have ended in tears. I think one driver went off the track as a result of all that, going to rejoin it without any further incident, hopefully, but that was still terrifying for these racers. Right as I was going to say, that small little incident can be your downfall. These drivers decide to go 4 wide down the start-finish straightaway. Usually 4 wide around any racetrack is challenging enough, but at a track like Watkins Glen, where there is no room for error, that is extra brave.
Yeah, and I think there were about 7 or 8 cars there that Mobin Khan overtook, and he gained in all of that 1 position in his class. So all of that work, maybe not the reward he was hoping for, but still back up into the podium positions, and with some incredible pace after the collision that we saw not too long ago down at turn number 6. So really good to see Mobin Khan working his way up the order, if not being a little bit brave with some of the moves he is making. This is the battle for the lead once again, though, in the GT4s. Garrett Maines leading Aiden Young, leading Aaron Myers. They're pulling away a touch from Justin Rame, but again, Justin Rame name is littered on the winners page for the GT4s. I have to do a little bit of maths to work out how many combined wins Young, Myers and Rame has, but I'm going to tell you it's quite a few.
I mean, hey, as long as they have the infrastructure to deal with all the trophies, that's all that matters at the end of the day. Gotta have enough cabinet space to keep all those trophies around. But who's gonna be the one taking the first trophy of this season in the GT4 category? I wouldn't say it's a complete toss-up, because there's certainly some drivers rising to acclaim, but you look at Maines and Young still covered by less than 0.2 of a second heading through at the beginning of this current lap, and Aaron Myers right behind, only a half a second back of Maines. Those 3 breaking away from the rest of the field, so you have to go back 1.5 seconds to find Justin Rame in the 88. But that's still 3 race cars and 3 race car drivers that are probably feeling very good about their chances now that we're officially into the second third of this race.
Really impressive to see these guys continuing their battle. Mind you, I've just about finished counting how many wins they've got, and it is 44 between the 3 of them. 44 PRL wins in the GT4s between Aiden Young, Aaron Myers and Justin Rame. It is just incredible how much success those 3 have had. But Garrett Maines is looking for what I believe, having a glance at the standings, be win number 1 in the GT4. So quite a battle that we're going to see throughout the rest of this race. That was the battle for P22 in the GT4s, or it is, I should say. Nice little moves going on down at the bus stop chicane, but being really hard fought. We've seen that this battle a couple of times throughout the race, as it has been involved in some of the leading moves in the LMP3s and some of the big moments in terms of lapping. But it's nice to see that even this far down the order, the battles are still really hard fought.
Yeah, even though these drivers are running a little bit farther in the back in relationship to the rest of the drivers in their respective classes, they're still going to give us a great show here on RaceSpot. If you are all tuning into this broadcast, enjoying the racing action thus far, how about you hit that subscribe button to never miss out on any of the racing action? But one driver's had a very eventful race, is Mobin Khan, who I believe has just made his run to come down pit lane, the number 64 car. We saw him leading the race earlier on, set the fastest lap of the race in the process, but then things, for lack of a better term, started to fall apart for him. He had that incident heading into turn number 6 with some GT4 traffic involved. He dropped down to 4th, and he's now coming into the pits from 4th, has that number 1 pit stall. Let's see how long he stays stopped in his box, and let's see if this starts a trend of some other LMP3 racers following the at one point race leader.
Yeah, really interested to see that Momin Khan is into the box early on. We've seen him go for a couple of different pit strategies over the course of the last season and a little bit, of course, in that opening race of last season when he was on the pole. He had a little bit of a different strategy to eventual race winner who was Adam Brockway, but it didn't necessarily work out well for him. Brockway is looking to make it 2 seasons from 2 that he's not started on pole, but he's won the race. In fact, Momin Khan will have started on pole in both of those. We'll see what he can do from there. A little bit of side-by-side, a lot of side-by-side. All this gets close. Eric Leroy is having to fight with Victor Couto as they work their way towards turn number 8. And don't forget the number 86 of Kuop Nin, who is working his way through as well in this battle. And in fact, the 86 driver is up into P5, and Leroy, after going for quite a brave move, has lost 2 positions out of it.
I mean, in fairness, I think he could have lost a lot more than just a couple of spots there, Dara. He could have lost his front bumper, his rear wing. He could have lost some anything on his race car, because that was so close to absolute disaster. Credit where credit's due to Nin in the number 86 car for just remaining patient as that chaos was going on around him and just being able to pick up the pieces as Eric Leroy nearly had that disaster befall him coming out of turn number 7. Beginning to pull away now from Leroy, as Leroy is currently about a second back coming out of turn number 1 through the S's at the beginning of this lap. So Leroy may be getting shaken as a result of that drama a couple of moments ago.
Yeah, really some dangerous moments for a few of these drivers. They're not going to be sitting comfortably with still more than half of this race to run. I think some of them will be looking up at that clock thinking, how is there so much time left? I feel like I've been driving for hours and days with the amount of stress that some of these guys have been put under, but some really impressive driving so far. Not least from this battle at the front of the GT4s. It tightens still with Justin Rame arriving on the scene. Michael Brooks may have something to say about this as well, less than 3 seconds back, but with Arnaud Jeunesse right behind him, I think he's going to be looking more in the rear view mirror than in the windscreen. So let's see how this develops and how the pit stops are going to go in these GT4 battles, with margins so fine, maybe going an extra lap and saving a little bit of fuel in the stop may actually gain you the lead in this race. And how critical could that be? We've not seen a change for the lead in the last 25 minutes here.
That's a very good point that he raised there, Dara, in reference to these drivers maybe deciding to do a little bit of a fuel-saving strategy. The driver who'd find himself in the catbird seats, if that did come to pass, would be Aaron Myers, just based off the fact he's running in 3rd and has had, I wouldn't say a completely free ride thus far, but he's got Garrett Maines and Aiden Young both punching a pretty significantly sized hole in the air. These GT4 race cars, certainly not the most aero-efficient race cars in the world, but they're not flying bricks either. That Mercedes, though, looks a lot bigger than Garrett Maines in that number 12, so I'm curious as to whether or not Aiden Young, despite running in P2 behind Maines throughout a decent chunk of this race, I'm curious if he's getting good fuel numbers at all, or whether he's struggling for gas as well, despite running in 2nd and still being in that draft.
Well, this is the thing, Aiden Young knows exactly how to manage a fuel stint, as does Aaron Myers. I'm sure those two have been scheming away for the last 25 minutes, which is why we've not seen too many moves ongoing between those guys. We're going to have to wait and see exactly how many... Oh, plays out! Oh, there's a bit of a spin! Who was that? That looked like it wasn't Brockway, was it? At the front of the field. No, it was not. Edwin Onofre does not come through. There's more crashing, though, behind. It's Scott Angelo, actually, in the number 68. That's another one of the LMP3s that has gone off. Is that Jerome Bertium? I hope not. Jerome Bertium, the driver with the most experience to this circuit in the PRL, that is here tonight. Hopefully that's not the end of his race, but it does look like there are a couple of issues, and he looks like he's backing up and reversing on his screen, which is never a good sign. So Bertium with some issues. That corner down at turn 6 has been a hot spot for issues, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely has. It is such a tough corner around this racetrack. You've got the downhill entrance, trying to carry as much speed as you can and relying on the downforce in the LMP3. So hold off on that point for a couple of moments. And side by side for the lead between Brockway and Onfra. That could have ended in tears, but they get through as a result of that. Still single file. Brockway running in first, Onfra running in P2 for now, but that it looks like Onfrey is maybe feeling a bit more confident in his chances, but getting back to the point I was going to raise in reference to turn 6 being super tie that downhill entrance, a little bit of off-camber nature to the bend as well, could be part of the reason why we've seen some incidents through there, and to tie another bow around the storyline involving Jerome in the 217 car. He did make a little bit of contact with Scott Angelo in the number 68 car, who we saw spin, hit the wall, and actually came to blows with a GT4 of Christian Menzes in the number 55. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the span of just a couple of moments, and there you can see the contact with the GT4 riding on board with him in that 217 car. A tough way for your race to come to a close, that first bit of contact absolutely destroying his suspension, and then that further wall contact just rubbing salt into the wounds.
Yeah, Jeremy Manella going around as well, as we've just seen at the bus stop chicane. I think for Bertigan there must have been damage on the front left suspension, heavy damage as we've seen, because that was not the safest of rejoins, and I don't think Jerome would have intentionally come onto the circuit in that manner. So there must have been heavy front left suspension damage, meaning that he couldn't turn the car away from the oncoming GT4, but he will have to suffer the consequences still in pit lane, as we see, oh, this is massive, a massive battle ongoing for the lead in the LMP3. Seven on Offra, trying to go around the outside at the bus stop chicane. You're going to find a move there, and Adam Brockway is going to fend off the 96, but on Offra and Brockway almost spinning into each other there onto the straight with a little bit of door banging.
Yeah, they're certainly risking it for the biscuit at this point in time, trying to grab the lead. Now that we are officially halfway into this race, Brockway leading it for now, but Onfra in that number 96 has certainly been feeling racier and racier lap after lap, going for some moves, the same move 2 laps in a row, heading into the bus stop chicane. I kind of mentioned it very early on into this broadcast when we were still in qualifying, Dara, but overtaking around this racetrack, which is rather narrow compared to modern race circuits, it's maybe a little bit more tricky for these drivers to get the moves done, but heading into the bus stop, that will be some prime real estate for these racers, trying to get some moves done in the GT4s as well, as the battle for second certainly heating up between Aiden Young and Aaron Myers. Young losing out on a lot of time to the back of Garrett Maines, as the gap has ballooned to about 9/10 of a second between those two.
Yeah, and the gap is increasing. It has been for a little while now, but it's still not the largest. There's still a close battle to be fought, and this is Aiden Young getting lapped by another one of the LMP3s. Very well could be Mobin Khan working his way through, and he will work his way onto the toe and will try and keep himself ahead of Aaron Myers for the time being. But Garrett Maines has pulled away a touch in the last couple of minutes, and we'll see if that will continue. Over the half distance mark though, 28 minutes left to run here at Watkins Glen, as there is a melee down at turn 1. GT4s, LMP3s, take your pick. They're 2x2 through the S's. 7 or 8 of them flow their way through this section of corners, which can be so high speed, yet so narrow with the walls so close on either side. They'll make it through, and they'll make it through nearly side by side on the GT4s. Is there a move to be made into the bus stop chicane around the outside? We've seen it's difficult, and I don't think we're going to see it once again. The 1-2-1 looking for the move. Can it get it done? Not quite. And I think it will stay in the same order, although, Ron, somehow you can run side by side throughout the entire chicane.
I am not entirely sure how they were able to get away with that without any sort of major contact and or disaster, but they made it work, so credit where credit is due to Stephen Tang in the 121 car, running on board with the Texan, running in 21st at the moment in the GT4 category. He's got that Aston right in front, heading into turn number 7 right about now, which could be a good overtaking opportunity as well. You gotta think of where are the heavy braking zones throughout this lap, can kind of count turn turn number 7 in that. Turn 8, though, we're coming up to it with Steven Tang. I don't know about you, Dara, but I have a feeling this may be a good spot for some drivers to sneak a wheel down the inside. They need to get it done with authority, though, because turn number 9, I mentioned it earlier on, I have a strong disdain for this corner because I have never been able to get it right in my entire time doing any sort of sim racing at all. So you gotta get it done with authority into turn number 8, but it's not an impossible move to pull off either.
It is increasing difficulty by the fact that drivers run so far wide that it's not really much of a braking zone. Into the pit lane, though, we're seeing a couple of the GT4s go. Running out of fuel, the 1-2-1 going very slowly into the box, and Steven Tang, that may have just been the line, but was going very, very slowly, nearly crawling into the box. And he will make his one and what should be final pit stop in this race, or necessary pit stop, required pit stop in this race. 26 minutes on the clock, and we've still got this battle, well, every battle ongoing on the circuit. There are so many cars so close together that you don't really know where to look, trying to get all the action to you here on RaceSpotTV, but with so many cars, it's very easy to miss a little move like that. A couple of these guys making some ambitious moves, and this is the battle for the lead in the LMP3. Adam Brockway making his way through, on offer trying to follow his way through, and with the fastest lap, it shows how much pace the 96 currently has.
I will say, though, on off-road, maybe getting the short end of the stick as they continually deal with traffic, but he's now coming down pit lane in that number 96 car, and I'm curious here, Dara, will Adam Brockway in that 42, who is now leading comfortably in the LMP3s, will he respond? This is the important matter for Onofre. Will he be joined by joined in pit lane in one lap's time by Adam Brockway, or is Brockway maybe going to stick to his guns and have a far different strategy than Onofre? Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. But Onofre stopped in his pit stall right now. Nin also joining him down the pits in the number 86 car. You can see that car just barely in the back of shot, creaking their way down pit lane. But this is going to be an intriguing thing to follow between Edwin Onofre and Adam Brockway. How are they going to shake out? Will Onofre be able to pull off that undercut, or will Brockway actually be able to hold on to the lead?
Brockway looking for his 4th LMP3 victory in the PRL, and it's going to be Onofre looking for his 1st, so that'll be an interesting dynamic as we work our way towards the end of the race. This is the interesting dynamic, though, down in towards turn number 8. We're talking about slipping a nose down the inside. That's pretty much slipping an entire car down the inside in the LMP3s, and that's a fantastically made move is that on JP Alfonso? I believe it is, and that is Adam Brockway, in fact, making his way through on lapped traffic. Wasn't even the position, but Adam Brockway still having to scythe his way through the field with authority, and the current race leader is doing exactly that. Gonna have to be careful, though, because Onofre's undercut looks like it may be working just a touch, and let's see what Adam Brockway decides to do on the pit strategy. A couple of more drivers coming into the pit lane. I think it's going to start to get very busy over the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, that slow but sure trickle that we've seen of racers coming into the pits may turn into a full-on flood as these drivers see the end of this race come up in the not-too-distant future. 23 minutes and 45 seconds left on the clock. It may not seem like a whole lot, but considering this race was originally starting off as 1 hour long, it feels like there's practically nothing left to go. But there's still a lot that can happen between then and now. These drivers still have to worry about the pit stops. Let's see how things shake out for Adam Brockway. Stopped in his pit stall right now. Victor Coito in the number 72 and Eric Leroy in the 444. Both going to follow Brockway down pit lane. But Onofre may be getting a good deal here. Let's see. It's going to be side by side between the two of them. Brockway going to have that short run at the pits, and he's going to be able to jump in front of Onofre. But Onofre going to be on those warm tires. Not going to have to deal with some cold rubber heading through the bus stop. So this fight is very much on.
Onofre, a fantastically consistent driver last season in the PRL, in the GT3 series on a Thursday night, trying to transfer that over into the LMP3. 7 top 5s in the 9 races. He's looking to go one from one. He's looking to get his first win in this machinery here tonight, and he's going to be chasing down Adam Brockway for the final 22 minutes of this race. The 42 has been in the lead for quite some time, but Onofre looking to end that as we get towards the final third of the race. race for Aiden Young and Aaron Myers. Shock horror, they're attached at the hip once again. We see this time and time again, but Young and Myers have found each other on the circuit, and no doubt they'll be battling all the way to the final corner to see who can win out in this mini battle to start off season 1 of 2025.
And this has been a brilliant way to kick off this season, hasn't it, Dara? We've had some old school sports car racing, the strategy content now surely rearing its head. Third tries a charm there, but this is a classic sports car race that we're seeing these drivers putting on a fantastic show for us in the commentary booth. We've got battles up and down the grid. This fight in GT4, maybe a little bit of a bump draft heading onto the back straightaway between Aiden Young, getting a bump from Aaron Myers. That could have ended in disaster between those two, running second and third at the moment in GT4. Effectively in no man's land, as Garrett Maines is 1.5 seconds farther up the road to Aiden Young, and you have to go about a second, 1.2 seconds to be a bit more precise, to find Justin Rem in fourth in the GT4s. But the north end of the field in the LMP3s, Brockway and Onofre covered by practically nothing, as we see a slow GT4 creaking their way through turn number 6.
Yeah, really is, not the best, really, for drivers upcoming, but they're going to have to deal with the traffic. That's part of the game of this LMP3 GT4 challenge, and we're going to have to see who can adapt to that in the best way possible. It's Jeremy Minella in the 881, a driver that we saw last season consistently, and he just has a little bit of a kiss of the barrier. Not the sort of monumental airplane crashes that we've seen down there so far tonight, but Jeremy Minella has just had a little bit of a spin, and he's managed to recover it pretty well in the 881.
Yeah, as long as he can keep that car going in a straight line, or get it back going in a straight line without any further incident, that's all that matters at the end of the day. Sure, your tires may be turned into rectangles as a result, but hey, as long as the car is still relatively clean, I guess that's all that matters at the end of the day. And you can see that nearly ended in disaster for Jeff Rosenberger in the number 82, coming out of turn number 9, mega sideways and nearly tank slapping that outside tire barrier. As we go back to a battle in the LMP3s, and seeing these drivers, they simply will not give up in terms of battling with each other. This is Kwok Nin and Faizan Seek. These two racers maybe got a battle for 6th.
Yeah, and a nice little battle for 6th ongoing. We've not got too many LMP3s left on the lead lap after the kind of chaos that we've seen, and you can see just about on the timing tower that Faizan Seek has got, Sheikh I should say, has got about half a minute between himself and P8, so a nice comfortable margin for the time being. Not the kind of margin that we're seeing here in the GT4s. Very, very tight race off pit lane, and it looks like it's going to be Aaron Myers ahead of Aiden Young, ahead of Justin Rame, just about as they work their way back onto the circuit. Aaron Myers, though, ahead of Aiden Young, and Young's not going to be pleased about that. He'll be trying everything he can to get back through. Has 20 minutes to do so, as we see that battle between the 1 and the 86 and the LMP3s.
Yeah, Sheikh trying to get that move done to slip his way up into P6, dealing with some traffic in the process. That could have ended in disaster, and you can see a very aggressive cutting back to the outside line to set themselves up as best as they can through the bus stop. But Sheikh, Faizan Sheikh in the 1, certainly not being phased by that battle at all to make his way up into P number 6. That was a slick move, dealing with some traffic throughout that process, but he got the move done. That's all that matters at the end of the day. But be careful, running into the dirt and big contact, heading down into turn number 7. Had that didn't end in a major collision, will absolutely stun me, but that's a spin. That was the car that Sheikh made contact with. That's Justin Rem in the 88. He was involved in that battle for the podium spots in the GT4s and backs it into the outside barrier. The 88 with nowhere to go, as Sheikh tried to get some moves done on some fellow LMP3s and just nowhere to go.
Yeah, and Justin Rame, I really thought he saved it there. He looked like he just about got it together, but then the rear end not sticking with him as he worked his way through, and you can just see that rear end going around. He needs to try and recover to the top 5. He was looking for his 45th all-time PRL top 5 finish, but that looks like it may have just drifted away from him a touch. Mobin Khan is fighting with Carter James here. He's recovering up the field after his mistake earlier on, or the contact that he had. He's looking for P3, but Carter James fending him off for the time being. Mobin Khan Khan, though, with some stellar pace in the second part of this race, really has shown why he got the pole and why he still wants to get on for the podium here.
Still gonna try and get some moves done. Still has some time left to get those moves done. Over 17 minutes still left on the clock, and plenty of opportunities to try and make up some spots. If he gets back onto the podiums, this would be an amazing recovery drive for Mobin Khan. He found himself in the midst of a big collision in GT4 earlier on, which nearly resulted in a GT4 car barrel rolling, heading through turn number 6. You can see he's oh so close to making contact between Mobin Khan and Carter James. I'm not sure about your perspective, Dara, but that looked like a matter of inches between those two heading through. That could have ended in tears.
Yeah, but that's why this series is just such a pleasure to watch and commentate on, because it is that, it's just that tiniest margin that can dictate whether you're going for an incredible move, you don't quite pull it off, or whether you're going to be careering into the wall. And these guys are able to judge it to a really fine extent, and it's such an impressive thing to be able to witness. He'll have another go, though, will Mobin Khan. Carter James will know that. You can see that Mobin Khan will be gaining in the rear view mirror and in the wing mirrors as well, as they work their way through the S's and onto the back straight. The bus stop is again the next place that Mobin Khan could try and make the move. It's so difficult to do so, and I think with the GT4 traffic he won't try anything here. They'll work their way in, and for Mobin Khan he'll have to sit and wait in behind, but got to be careful, because this traffic is going to make all sorts of carnage with their lines.
That is the worst place around this track to deal with some much slower traffic, and it breaks these two up a teeny tiny bit. It's now about a half a second between these two. I say a half a second as if that's a vast yawning chasm, considering that we're only got about 15 and a half minutes left into this 1 hour race, and the front drivers in LMP3 battling for the final podium spot, still covered by about a half a second. Really speaks volumes about how fantastic multi-class sports car racing really is, both in real life and on the iRacing platform as well, as we may see this battle flare up yet again. That bad traffic encounter that they had to deal with, no fault to the GT4 driver, he was just doing as best as he possibly could, but for the LMP3s, that was the worst spot that they could have even imagined to catch up to a GT4. They've still got some GT4 traffic that they're going to be dealing with at the end of this current lap and the start of the next one, but it'll be at a slightly more opportune time, and may bring Mobin Khan back into that discussion for the final podium spot as they nearly make contact with the GT4 heading through the braking zone of 1.
The sun has come out from behind the clouds here in upstate New York as it come out for Mobin Khan, and to see him make a move for P3, let's find out. He's right on the back of that Echelon Sim Sport car. He's going to go to the outside line. He has to, because Carter James is going to defend the inside line like his life depends on it. Can Mobin Khan tiptoe his way around the outside of the bus stop chicane? Not this time around. And how many times are we going to see this? Mobin Khan go for a move, but just finding himself catching in the wrong places on the racetrack and finding some GT4 traffic in some inopportune places as well. They'll work their way towards 5 and 6 and then into 7 and 8, but there's nothing on for Mobin Khan for the time being, and all the while they're shipping a little bit more time to the top two, who just continue to eke their gap out in front.
I want to switch the perspectives in terms of this LMP3 fight that we're taking a look at still. Imagine Robert Schwankler in the 235 car a couple of moments ago, heading your way through the outer loop, knowing that there's some LMP3 traffic around you, and just seeing this fight of giants for the final podium spot overall, and in that LMP3 category, more GT4 traffic deciding this fight. Carter James now fully backed up behind Mobin Khan. This is going to be close between these two. This is a fight for the giants. As I said, it's a fight for the final podium spots to kick this season off. Mobin Khan started from the pole. He looks to try and grab a podium spot. After that incident we saw early on, it's really a small little consolation considering what could have been, but I'm sure he's still not going to turn his nose at a podium either. That's a really good way to kick off the season, and it would be the exact same meaning that Carter Jones would have from this result in the Echelon car, but now side by side heading through the S's. Mobin Khan using that run coming out of turn number 1, but got some GT4 traffic to deal with still. They're going to have to deal with these cars 3 wide, hang down that back straightaway, and look at that Mercedes right in front, side by side, heading into the inner loop. Will it be a successful challenge from Khan? It will not for now.
was a little mistake actually from Carter James in turn number 1 that gave Mo Bin Khan that opportunity to go side by side up through the S's, and he's still hounding the 99 car inside here. No, surely not going to go for that, especially after what he's seen down at turn 6 so far today. Going to think better of it and going to try and find somewhere else. Still time on the clock, still 12 and a half minutes or so to find a move past the number 99 and into the top 3. But they've got to be careful. If these guys start fighting a little bit more, Eric Leroy isn't a million miles away, about 5 seconds back off this battle. He wouldn't mind getting himself involved in a battle for the podium, and the 444 would not say no to that great start to a season. So really interesting storylines to be decided in the final 12 minutes here. Can Carter James hold off? Because it looks like Mo Bin Khan is clearly the faster driver at the moment, but just cannot find his way through.
As this is going on, and have it be known that this is still incredibly intense. Look at that from Mo Bin Khan shooting his shot and going around the outside of that GT4 traffic through turn number 10, taking a beautiful maneuver for Mo Bin Khan to slip his way up into 3rd. Not sure if that's entirely legal on iRacing, but still, if it works, it works, and Mo Bin Khan made that work to absolute perfection. Now finds himself in 3rd. I was just going to mention, though, Dara, that the front 2 in GT4 now covered by half a second. Garrett Maines and Aaron Myers may start to battle for the win in the not too far off future, as this fight between Khan and James certainly going to heat up. James now maybe trying to fight back on the inside into the inner loop. Some more traffic to deal with. This time we've got a GT4 and an LMP3. So the traffic dilemma for these drivers, it's such a headache.
Yeah, it's just the main problem for these guys as they work their way through in this series, and you can see it here once again. What opportunism that is from Mo Bin Khan to find a way around the outside. They straddle the GT4, and even though he's gone a little bit off the circuit, it seems that iRacing said, nope, that's all right, that's all nice and valid, and Mo Bin Khan is up into the podium positions. Gabriel Gutierrez looking for a move in this battle for P14. It's Kurt Ham who is just in front in the number 11 car. They've got a little bit of company in the form of an LMP3 finding its way around the outside, but this battle for P14 will run on towards the end. I've noticed as well a bit of a tightening in the battle for the lead in the GT4s. Garrett Maines did have that gap over a second, didn't he? Now back to under a second, and Aaron Myers is looking to stalk his way ever closer to the current race leader.
Yes, slowly but surely reeling him in. The real question is, will he be able to get a move done? Catching up to your competitors is one thing. Overtaking is an entirely different problem. So Aaron Myers still going to be happy with a P2, but I'm sure he wants to spray that winner's champagne at the end of this first 1-hour race of this 9-race season. Maines, though, he's been dominant thus far. I've mentioned this many times throughout this broadcast, and I'll mention it again. Was the fastest car in practice, set the pole, has been leading for a decent chunk of this race in the GT4 category, but it doesn't matter about all the laps you lead before. The one that you need to lead is that last lap. You need to reach that checkered flag first. Doesn't matter if you reach the white first, you gotta make it to the checkered. So at this point in time, Garrett Maines may be having to shuffle up the way he attacks the end of this race. The fact that Aaron Myers seems to have the hyperjets turned on that 22 car to reel in that gap, still teetering around about a half a second, but Maines maybe starting to feel that pressure build.
Yeah, let's see if he can hold on to this victory. He's never won in the PRL. Aaron Myers has 5 wins to his name and many, many more podiums, so he knows exactly what it takes to deliver in moments like this in the PRL. He's looking to get that championship lead after the opening round. He's been, as I've mentioned a couple of times, in such a titanic battle with Aiden Young that every single point really has meant its weight in gold for Aaron Myers over the course of the back end of 2024 in particular, and he'll know how important the win could be here today. There's no guarantee that Garrett Maines can deliver this kind of performance next week, the week after, and Aiden Young can equally find himself at the front of the field once again. So for Aaron Myers, it's critical for him to at least try and find a move, and the chasing the Delta drive, I have no doubt will go for it somewhere in the final 8 minutes of this race.
And the one thing that we need to talk about in terms of battling for the win is battling to be in a good mental frame heading into this season. If you start off on the wrong foot, you're going to feel like you're stumbling around this season. Look at that. Another near collision heading down the start-finish straightaway. Looked like we nearly saw 3 wide with about 2.5 lanes worth of track to try and fight for. That could have ended in tears for Justin Bragan, who are following in that number 71 Mercedes in all of that drama. Currently running P22 at the moment in GT4, but this race has been absolutely fantastic, and we still got some good battles to talk about in the GT4 category. We'll say in LMP3, Adam Brockway beginning to pull away now, 4.7 seconds between himself and Edwin Onofre, so that is looking like that battle has definitely cooled off coming to the final 7 minutes of this first 1 hour race of the season. But the fight is still intense between Mobin Khan and Carter James for that final podium spot in the GT4 class win battle. Certainly going to be intense as well.
No doubt about it, Aaron Myers is still going to be right on the tail, and even if the gap is opening up a little bit in the LMP3s, it is most certainly staying pretty close in that GT4 battle. Justin Bragan is looking for a move towards the back end of these GT4s. He's over a lap down, but he's right on the back of the number 13 of Joe Faroni. We'll see if he can make a move for P21 in the closing stages here. Cars have gapped themselves out just a little bit over the course of the last 10-15 minutes, as you would expect, with the traffic really playing a part in all of that. But we've still got on the little inset on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, Mobin Khan and Carter James. Only a few tenths between them in the battle for P3. We also have this battle for P9 in the LMP3s, and it's Stevenson trying to hold on from Victor Couto, who was up in the top 4 at one point today, but trying to recover to the top 9 inside line at turn 8. Ron, you've said a couple of times tonight that that could be a good place to make a move, and Victor's been heeding your calls.
Yeah, trying to get that move done through turn number 9. It may not seem too menacing. Turn 9, the corner that they just went through. Contact being made, though, in the small little flat-out blast between 9 and 10. Very lucky that those two race cars got away with that rather scot-free, but they don't make it through 11. Big crash heading through a massive impact into that outside safer barrier. I knew as soon as they made contact coming out of turn number 9 that that battle was a foundation built on quicksand. And soon enough, those bricks were starting to crack, and that was huge, heading through the final corner.
And Stevenson getting turned across the nose into the wall at the exit, and deflecting, the car deflecting back onto the racing line. A horrible place to be stuck. And with a car as damaged as that, you're not really in a position to move it off the racing line with any kind of promptness, quite frankly. So really unfortunate for him, and we'll see if he's able to re-emerge back onto the circuit. But with 5 minutes to go and that amount of damage on the car, I think he'd be hard-pressed to find himself out of the pit lane before the end of the day. Only 5 minutes to go, and the battles really are finding their way to a conclusion. One way or another, drivers are going to have to make the moves if they want the positions. And in the GT4 classes, up and down the field, but particularly in this midfield, we're seeing a lot of these battles still taking place, and they're going to have to be sorted out soon.
Yeah, not a whole lot of time left to go. These racers need to figure out the way to get the move done. Otherwise, they're just going to have to settle for whatever position they're in. Looking at battle for 9th at the moment in the GT4 category. We see Wyckoff involved in this. Wyckoff started this race off with a big spin heading through turn number 1. So it has not been an incredibly smooth day for this driver, but looking to try and end it strong. Right behind him, though, a side-by-side fight may be brewing at the moment. This is still really early doors for this fight, so who knows how it's going to cook out, how it's going to shake out. Still got 3 minutes and 40-ish seconds left on the clock. Trying to do the math in my head, that equates to probably about 2 or 3 laps ago. Dara, I think you may have to be my fact-checking committee on this. You can tell I was great in math class as a kid, but still basically no time left compared to how much time they had to start.
Yeah, we've only got 2 more laps to go. Thanks to Hugo for absolutely clarifying that. Although, to be fair, I was looking at it thinking it could be close. But if Hugo says it's 2, on on his head be it. We'll run in towards turn 6 now with still more lapping ongoing between the LMP3s and the GT4s. It never ends after we get through the first pass of the drivers in the race. And we'll see if anybody can try and use the traffic to their advantage in the closing couple of minutes. You know, make a little opportunistic move, drivers are offline, and if drivers can predict where the others are going to be, they may be able to stick a nose up the inside. Surprise a driver by going around the outside, we'll have to wait and see. We saw Mobin can't do it on Carter James, who we're looking at here, so it's definitely not out of the question to happen in the closing couple of minutes. I feel like we're going to have another 2 laps after this one, actually, if Adam Brockway is going to be pretty much at the start-finish line now, lapping at about 1 minute 37, so there should be 2 after this one, and we've still got a little bit more time to see this racing unfold.
And one thing to raise in terms of these timed races and coming to the checkered flag and the small little confusion that may arise in a driver's head thinking about when that checkered flag is going to come out. Gotta think of the fuel situation as well. Have these drivers put enough gas in their car to make it to the checkered flag if there's another lap put on the board? That remains to be determined, and have it be known that Watkins Glen, a racetrack like this with the amount of elevation change that we do, not a very good track to run out of gas on, to be sure, but look at that. That was an absolutely terrifying moment for the LMP3 catching up to the GT4 battle.
Yeah, Matthew Wyckoff and Justin Bracken and Kellen Tobin could do without that, I think, in their battle for P9 as they worked their way through the bus stop chicane for what should be the penultimate time in their race. They'll work their way towards turn 6 with Justin Bracken getting ever closer to the back of Matthew Wyckoff, who started in the top 4. We saw him spinning at the opening turn, going wide off of the road, but he's recovered very well, it's fair to say, after dropping right to the back of the field to get inside the top 9 of a 33-car field to start with. Really is an impressive job, I think.
Yeah, it is an incredibly impressive performance from him. Usually you think in a 1-hour race, you gotta attack it all the time, but sometimes just going about this race methodically will be really, really important, and a methodical drive can be even more impressive than one going for all-out glory, as we're seeing at the moment. But in terms of this 1-hour race, it has flown by. Less than 40 seconds on the clock, and for Adam Brockway in the LMP3s, it's looking to be a pretty comfortable win over Onfra. Hopefully I didn't just jinx him there, but in the GT4s, the fights are still very much on. About 0.8 of a second, though, between Garrett Maines and Aaron Myers in P1 and P2 and GT4, so I'm not entirely sure if we will see a battle for the win in the GT4 class, because those two have been running line astern. Garrett Maines, though, shaking off just about every single challenge that's been thrown to him as Brockway's on the final lap.
Yeah, Brockway will make his way towards the line pretty soon. The last time that Aaron Myers or Aiden Young didn't win the race here in the PRL was the final race in the 2024's Season 3, where Sam Mayorga took the win. We had all 9 races last season won by either Aaron Myers or Aiden Young, but seemingly that's about to change. Still a little bit of time, though, for Aaron Myers to try and make a go of it if he's able to, as Justin Bracken gets close, but not quite close enough to make a move on his rival. The white flag has flown, and for most of the drivers, they are on their final laps. And Adam Brockway, is that going around the outside? It looks like he's on his victory lap. Oh, it's not. He's coming around the final couple of corners here, isn't he? Cars, new season Ron, they all look so similar, but Adam Brockway is coming around the final few corners now. He has driven superbly across this race. There was contact at the front. Mobin Khan was the driver to miss out, and just like it was in race number 1 of the last season of 2024, Mobin Khan started on pole, but it's going to be Adam Brockway that picks up the pieces. He's going to come around the final corner now. The number 42, it's going to be his 4th GT4 win in the PRL, his 7th all-time, and he takes the championship lead in the opening round and the opening race of the year for the LMP3 GT4 Challenge. And what a way to do it. Comfortable in the end. It wasn't at times, but a great win and a great way to start the season for the number 42. Edwin Onofre and Mobin Khan will finish 2nd and 3rd. Onofre so close to his first win in the PRL. For Mobin Khan, it's almost rinse and repeat from the start of last season, but we'll see if he can recover. A good podium after dropping all the way down the field sees him win the race. But I think it's fair to say now, with still half a lap to go, it's not not necessarily over in the GT4s, Ron, even if there's only 2 on this lap.
Yeah, it's not over, but I wouldn't say it's going to flare up from my expert opinion, going to kind of the fact they're about a second apart, heading into turn number 6 for the final time. Garrett Maines, though, certainly hoping that he doesn't throw this one away and have some sort of mistake, a crucial and heartbreaking one in the final half of the lap. He just needs to put together a clean final couple of corners through turn number 7 for the last time. But this overall was a brilliant way to kick this season off. I mentioned how you got sports cars around a sports car track, and you're going to have some old school fun, and we just saw that got put on full display all throughout this 1-hour race. There is some strategy content involved, some hard-fought battling, some very close calls thrown into the mix as well, but overall a fantastic way to kick this season off, and it's going to be a fantastic way to kick it off for Garrett Maines as he has 2 more corners left to go to take the first GT4 checkered flag of the season.
His first checkered flag in his PRL career. Fantastic start to the season for Garrett Maines. We were talking about Aaron Myers, Aiden Young, and Justin Rain being the 3 names to look out for, but Garrett Maines bursting onto the scene and bursting himself into the championship lead. The number 12 wins at Watkins Glen. Aaron Myers will finish in P2. It's not quite his championship lead to kick off 2025, but the number 22 with another consistent performance, as we've come accustomed to, the finish in second. It was Aiden Young who did finish on the podium in P3. The usual figures in second and third, but it's great to see some newer names at the top of the tree, and we're going to have a very interesting championship going into next week in 7 days' time. Are we getting some donuts from Garrett Maines? What are we getting? Are we getting a reversing? If these are donuts, they're the slowest donuts I've ever seen. I think he's just parking up the car into the support road there. I don't know what I'm watching, Ron.
I think he's maybe getting it turned around, possibly. Let's wait and see what the driver of the number 12 car does. Maybe just getting some photos for himself, potentially. Not entirely sure. Still stopped there at the moment. May not see some donuts, but what we saw was some brilliant racing from start to finish, and some well-deserved winners when everything is said and done as well.
Yeah, well, we'll have to ask what was happening there for the number 12 driver when he comes in for an interview. But in the LMP3s, after 37 laps, it was Adam Brockway who won the race. He takes the championship lead once again, just as he did at the start of last season. Sadly, that was his only race of the season at the back end of 2024. Let's hope that he can stick around for a little bit longer and get himself into the championship battle. It was Evan Onofre in second place, so close yet so far from his first PRL win, with Mobin Khan, the pole sitter, finishing in third. Carter James, great display from him to finish in fourth, and for Eric Leroy to get inside the top 5. Only Faizan Sheikh and Kwok Nin were on the lead lap. Only the top 7 were on the lead lap in the end in the LMP3s. Victor Couto was a lap down, along with JP Alfonso and Jacob Van Spania, who finished off the top 10. To round out our LMP3s, it was Dave Stevenson who was 5 laps down. We had more non-finishers with Pineda, Nobles and Jerome Bertiome in his 245th PRL race start, 6 laps down in 14th. Scott Angelo, Miguel Vigo, Dakiel Rodriguez and Zach Hebert. No way seeing the checkered flag, and for Hebert that's almost a surprise considering his consistency that he showed last season. In the GT4s, it was Garrett Maines who put his head amongst some of the top drivers in the GT4s in the PRL. And for Aaron Myers and Nathan Young, they have got more competition than they were necessarily hoping for. It's going to provide us some great racing action all the way through to March. Myers was second, Young was third, Arnaud Jeunesse was fourth. In his 161st PRL race start, he got his 51st top 5 finish. Skylar Davis rounded out that top 5, with Christian Menzies, the first of the Aston Martins, in 6th, Chris Smreka, the third of the Mercedes, in 7th, and Ayrton Williams in P8. Matthew Wyckoff, after his spin at turn 1, was 9th, and Justin Bragan rounded out the top 10 after their close battle towards the end of the race. Caelan Tobin and Ken Copeland were 11th and 12th. Roy Brown, Kurt Ham, Gabriel Gutierrez, Mike Gallant and Roman Foe were the other drivers on the lead lap. Joseph Daly, Jordan Walker and Stephen Tang were inside the top 20, but 2 laps down. as were Joe Faroni and Robert Schwenkler. We saw Schwenkler go around a couple of times in the opening couple of laps, but stayed inside the top 22. Michael Brooks was 4 down. Cade Smith was 6th with Joseph Maley. Jeremy Rogers at Parker Muirhead 7 laps down. Jeff Rosenberger was 10 laps down in 28th, with Joey Manella and Justin Ray not seeing the checkered flag after their promising starts, just inside the top 30. Travis Pruitt, Keith Powell and Eric Fenson nowhere near seeing the checkered flag. They got to about half race distance, but no further, and they were the 33 drivers that we saw in the GT4s. I see we've got a busy looking interview booth, and I'm delighted to say that we can have a quick chat with our race winner in the LMP3s, Adam Brockway. Welcome in. Congratulations on the win. What a way to start the year.
Yeah, definitely a good start to the season, especially after, dropping out of last season. So glad to come around, round one with the win.
And I mean, you won round one last season. We didn't see you back for the rest of the season. Are we hoping to get you into the championship battle this year?
Yeah, I hope so. Today was definitely, it was unfortunate. It wasn't the way you want to take a win. Mobin was really fast out there. Miguel was definitely super quick, so that incident, early on the race, it's just unfortunate. But definitely hoping to stay in the mix for a championship this season.
How did you feel about managing the traffic? It looked really difficult, of course, with Mobin's incident nearer the start of the race with the traffic. Did you find it difficult to negotiate your way through, or were you kind of getting into a rhythm of the race?
It was hit or miss. A lot of it was easy to read, and communication was really good, and there were some other guys that you're just anticipating something else, and they do something else. So it's always difficult, just managing it and staying out of incidents, and being safe was the goal. So not as more difficult than usual.
But another great result from you and a great way to start 2025. Next week we're heading to Daytona. Is that a circuit you're looking forward to racing at?
I hope so. I got a lot of laps on Daytona, but so does the rest of the service. Coming up with the Roar coming up this weekend, which I'm sure a lot of these guys are going to be running. So, with the prep with the rest of the guys on the M squad, I'm hoping to, if not take another win, at least a podium.
Well, we wish you all the best, and we hope to be able to speak to you in 7 days' time. But Adam Brockway, thanks for joining us, and congratulations on your win this evening.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Brilliant to be able to speak to Adam Brockway after his win. It's also good that we're going to be able to speak to Edwin off for the P2 man. Ron, he's with you now.
Hello.
Yeah, we got Edwin here in the commentary booth. Hello, Edwin, and well done on grabbing a P2 result to kick this season off. Talk us through the race that we just saw here at the Glen.
Well, to begin, I don't know how I thought I was going to be able to get the podium spot after where I qualified from P9 to P2 took me by surprise. But I was fairly confident that with my previous experience in LMP3 for so many hours compared to all the prototypes, it was going to help me as an advantage, especially at the Glen. But I'm going to say, that was just stressful right there. Like I said, I wasn't sure if I was going to be up there trying to compete for the win. The win was not my main goal at the start of the race. The main goal was just surviving, because I knew I was not going to be able to have pace with drivers like Vigo and Mobin Khan. But after what happened early in the race, that took me by surprise. And then I switched goals from trying to survive to trying to win. And it was a very tough battle against Adam Brockway right there.
Yeah, it looked like a really tough battle between you two, flared up occasionally by the lap traffic, kind of deciding that fight when everything was said and done. I want to ask you about that and the dynamic dealing with the lap traffic all throughout this race.
So it was kind of predictable to figure out where the GT4s were coming, and I did notice that Adam Brockway was occasionally sending it into every corner, and that's where he loses time and I gain speed because I was a little bit more patient toward the older GT4s, and I built up my run against that. But it didn't work out in the end, because once I came into the pit stop, I decided to try to change the left front tire because that's the one that wore out the most, and it did not help out at all, and that's how Adam Brockway was getting away. We were pretty close at some point, but it was not enough. Adam was able to get away.
it was able to get that move done and make it stick, but still, I don't think you have your head to hang low about anything to do with this race, and maybe having some high hopes heading into the next race at Daytona in 1 week's time. So what are your thoughts heading into that?
Well, Daytona is the sweats of the sweats. That's where a lot of people invest a lot of time into finding the perfect lap, into getting that consistent lap as well. And with the LMP3s not having a lot of downforce for them, it's going to be very difficult because everybody practices for it. I need a lot more practice than what I just had currently. And there's a risk with it. There's a risk of low downforce for the straights, or a reward for able to control the car and getting the overtakes on the straights. But we'll see how it goes. I have a lot of time, and I have the officials, thank goodness at least. I have the official races to practice up for that, so I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good race in 1 week's time, and hopefully for your sake, you're going to be involved in another fantastic battle all throughout that. But Edwin, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth, and well done on the P2 results to kick this season off.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
An offer there. Great to speak to Edwin after a P2, nearly his first win, but sadly coming up just short. In P3 in the LMP3s, we had Mobin Khan after his pole. Mobin, welcome in. Let's focus on the positives to kick it off. 5 poles in the last 10 races. You really have had some scintillating pace in qualifying, haven't you?
Yeah, I was I didn't have any confidence coming into qualifying this round. I didn't really think I'd be as competitive as I was, and then boom, we stuck it on pole, and we had an excellent start there. We really, really got away. Had an unfortunate incident going 3 wide into the carousel, and it ended up, the guy turned in over me, and I turned him, and it was just chaos. So I think I'm still grateful to be able to finish on the podium. The season's long, and I think we'll be able to fight for the championship from here on out. I think we're in a good place.
Yeah, P3, recovering to P3 with the pace that you showed really, really was impressive. Does that put you in a good place heading to Daytona next week?
Yeah, let's see. It's going to be Daytona's a completely different track to set up. It's so different from the other tracks given how long the oval is and how little downforce you run. So we got a few days here to cook something up, and then I'll see you guys next Monday there to see if we can get it back on pole and win the race.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be speaking to you again next week, maybe watching your pole lap once again. But maybe congratulations on the podium, and yeah, we might speak to you in 7 days' time.
Thanks. I'd like to give a shout out to Dr. Dabber, Ellis Engineering, Muradness, and Nemesis Lab for sponsoring our Team Satellite Racing, as well as Adam Crane for the continued support in our LMP3 program, as well as RaceSpot and PRL for putting on a great broadcast and event, giving sim racers a chance to exercise their skills on a broadcast. It's really important work, and I'm very grateful that you guys take the time out of your day to do this.
As always, Mobin, thank you so much for racing this evening, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Cheers. Take care.
Mobin Khan there, our P3 man in the LMP3s. Now we can have a little talk to our GT4 podium sitters and the winner, Garrett Mains, first time winner. Ron, he's joining you now.
Yeah, Garrett Mains now with us in the commentary booth, pulling off the sweep, for lack of a better term, after saying the fastest time in practice, qualifying, and the race. Garrett, I want to start off this interview by thanking you for grabbing the victory, because I had you picked as the race winner in my book heading into it, so thank you very much for that. But that looked like a pretty hard-fought race from you. Certainly wasn't easy, even though you're running at the front for a decent chunk of it. So talk us through this race that we just saw here at the Glen.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, my second race on the boot. I don't know if it was clear, but there at the end, I felt like that was where I was losing the most time. I wasn't exactly set up for the boot either. I was definitely wanting to maximize in the areas I felt most comfortable. But, man, it was a pretty good race through and through. I mean, the first half of the race was kind of a draft train. And I knew as long as I didn't make a mistake, it was going to be hard for somebody to make a move on me. I definitely made one at the beginning of the race and kind of had to claw my way back. But overall, I mean, really happy with, the pace that we had. I was a little concerned coming into it. I just didn't really know what to expect. But, I mean, shoot, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it certainly looked like a lot of fun just from our perspective in the commentary booth. Certainly, I had a whole lot of fun on my first ever PRL broadcast here on RaceSpot, but that looked like a really fun race here at the Glen, and we're going to be running at another fun American track, that being the Daytona International Speedway Road Course in just 1 week's time. So what are your thoughts heading into that race?
My thoughts are I may or may not be in Utah at the time, so yeah, we'll see if we make it. I'm really I was bummed to see that was the race I was missing. I thought I was going to miss week 3 and not week 2, but we will see how my schedule shapes up. If FedEx fails to deliver some things, you might see me. Who knows? But yeah, just gonna have to wait and see. I think Daytona is a much stronger track for me. I have a lot more experience there, but honestly, this was a lot of fun for my first PRL race. I'll take it starting off strong. Didn't get into anything, so obviously I gotta give a huge shout out to the team, Ryko Performance, with the setup tonight. Big thank you to Aaron as well for talking through, and to be clear, Aaron Vasquez at Ryko, for talking through some of the setup changes that I could make tonight to just kind of maximize on it and just tune it for me, because there were some things that I wanted to change, and it was a freaking rocket. So obviously you got to thank them, and thank you to Linux and MCU Body for their support this season as well.
Well, that car was certainly a rocket, rocketing you into victory lane to kick this season off. Garrett, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth, and well done on the victory.
Thank you, sir.
Mains then for joining us. Always good to speak to a first-time winner. I was looking down the order. I'm thinking this guy can't not be on any kind of win record. That's because it was his first race, of course, for Garrett Mains. P2 man though, we welcome back into the broadcast booth on a Monday night, Aaron Myers. Welcome in, Aaron. P2 tonight. I mean, Garrett's jumped into the car. It's kind of put the cat amongst the pigeons between you and Aiden.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's so glad to be back. I've been waiting the last 6 weeks or whatever it's been to get back to this. But yeah, what a race one. Aiden and I fighting at the beginning, and then swapping around, and then Garrett just being flawless all race. So kudos to both of those guys.
And I mean, of course, we've talked so much over the past 6 months about how your pace is compared to Aiden. Do you feel any kind of, or do you feel comfortable in your pace going into this season? Of course, you had a great qualifying lap time once again. You look like you've really nailed that down.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I know a couple seasons ago we raced at Watkins once before, and Aiden seemed like he was a little bit on the back foot here. So I feel like his pace tonight isn't representative of what he's going to do all season long. So that should be pretty interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But otherwise, I definitely have stepped my game up a little bit as well over the last couple weeks. Really trying to nail that race pace down for that whole hour.
And next week, Daytona, a track you're looking forward to. It's a very well used one.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. I don't think the Porsche is going to be too strong there, so we'll just have to see how it plays out.
We look forward to it, Aaron. Pleasure as always to speak to you. I hope you've had a lovely Christmas and New Year. We'll probably speak to you again very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Nice there. Always a pleasure to speak to Aaron. And finally, Ron, we can speak to our P3 man in the GT4s. Aiden Young's with you now.
Yep, Aiden Young now joining us in the commentary booth. Aiden, it looked like a really fun fight, battling for the podium spot and the win in GT4 here at the Glen. So talk us through that battle and talk us through your race.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun race. I had a really good race with Aaron and Garrett. Just unfortunate there at the end. A little dodgeball went on. I kind of bounced off a couple cars. Made my car crab walk for the final half of the race. That was not ideal. I had to limp the car home. It was like once I felt the crab walking, I was like, well, this is not ideal. Well, just go straight into the mindset of to finish first you got to finish. And then I just got the car home, tried to keep it underneath me, and other than the damage, the car was a rocket. I can't thank my team, WSR Esports Butt Kicker, enough. They've made me into a great driver, and hopefully I can carry over my pace into each race and hopefully get that 4th championship this season.
Well, fourth championship crown would certainly not be a bad thing for you to have at all coming out of this season, and I will try and make you feel a little bit better about the crabbing that you're experiencing in the second half. Have it be known that with my experience being from the city of Philadelphia, I've seen many cars driving very quick down some major highways in this city, crabbing at some very odd angles. So if that makes you feel any better, have it be known that it'd probably be road legal here in the city of Philadelphia. But I will ask you about the next race that we have on the season calendar, Daytona, running on the road course, one of the most iconic tracks in all of sports car racing, and one that we're hoping is going to bring in some pretty good racing. So what do you think heading into that race in 1 week's time?
I think Daytona would be a good one. Yeah, it'll definitely be another draft fest just like Watkins was, but I think you might see for Watkins, sorry, not Watkins, Daytona. We just did Watkins. What am I talking about? My brain is meh right now. You might see a lot more Mercedes, I would assume, because I feel like Daytona and the GT4s is a bit more of a Mercedes dominant track. McLaren is also quite good there, as seen from the IMSA Open a year or so ago. Actually, my team won that, so that kind of gives me a confidence that I'm on a team that knows Daytona very well. Hopefully we can put together a set and make it good for the track, and then hopefully I can keep pace and then stay at the front of the pack.
Yeah, gotta be a really good race in 1 week's time, and fingers crossed we find yourself involved in another battle yet again. But Aiden Young, thank you so much for joining us in the commentary booth, and well done on your podium in the GT4s to kick this season off. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. See you next week.
Young then, rounding out our interviews in tonight's race. And what a race it was, Ron. We had some great battles up and down the field. The LMP3s and the GT4s really look like they're going to have some great championship battles running all the way through our 9-round season.
Oh, absolutely brilliant way to kick this season off, and that close racing certainly going to convert on not just the racetrack, but the championship standings tables as well. And heading into the Daytona road course in just 1 week's time on January the 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern time, exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. That race is going to be absolutely brilliant. Maybe gonna have to rely a bit more on straight line speed. Some drafting going to be a big factor on the high banks of Daytona, but that will be a really good race and give us a good idea as to what to expect in the Daytona 24, which is also going to be broadcasted here on RaceSpot in conjunction with iRacing themselves. But Daytona, that's going to be a really fun way to keep this season going, but what a way to start.
Absolutely, and it's going to be Daytona season, isn't it, really, in the coming weeks, and we hope to see you there in 7 days' time. Don't forget, PRL action continues tomorrow with the GT3 Fixed and Sprint Series. We'll see you then, but we'll also see you in 7 days' time in the LMP3 GT4 Challenge. My thanks to Ron Morns, with me, myself, Darren Thacker in the commentary box, and Hugo Luis in the broadcast booth. We'll see you in 7 days' time when PRL returns at Daytona.